Most women don't realize that the kind of feminine energy a man remembers forever has little to do with beauty, and everything to do with how she touches his unconscious. She doesn't walk into his life, she walks into his psyche. She does not fight for his attention, she mirrors his soul. And in doing so, she awakens something ancient and forgotten inside of him. The anima, the feminine image within every man that governs his dreams, his fears, his longing for wholeness. This is not seduction. This is transformation. The anima is not drawn to noise, performance, or the desperation of validation seeking. She is drawn to the woman who moves like myth, slowly, with meaning, untouched by the chaos of the external world. Her voice doesn't demand, it resonates. Her presence doesn't chase, it invites. Her wounds have not made her bitter, they have made her sacred. She has faced herself, and in doing so, she has become a living symbol of everything his inner world has tried to forget. When a man encounters a woman who carries this depth, he does not see her clearly at first. Instead, he projects onto her the image buried in his unconscious. He believes it is love, but it is reflection. She reflects the part of him he has repressed, the tenderness, the longing, the receptivity, the chaos of feeling. And if he is not ready to meet that part within himself, he will reject her, blame her, or try to possess her. But if he is ready, truly ready, he will begin to unravel. You must understand, the woman who awakens the anima in a man is not always loved in return, at least not in the way she deserves. For she does not just stir his desire, she stirs his shadow, his unhealed mother wounds, his forgotten softness, his buried fears of abandonment and betrayal. She holds a mirror to all that he has buried. And if he has built his life upon avoidance, the sight of her will terrify him, because to love her means to descend into himself. Her energy is not loud, but it is penetrating. She may be quiet, but her presence lingers like a dream. He can't quite remember. She brings both comfort and confusion. He will feel safe with her, yet strangely exposed. She does not try to prove herself, and that unsettles him. She is not fighting to be chosen, because she already knows she is sovereign. And that, perhaps more than anything, is what wakes something primal inside him. The part of him that aches for the sacred, the real, the untouched. In the eyes of most, she may seem ordinary, but to the man whose anima she touches, she becomes unforgettable, not because of what she gives him, but because of what she awakens within him. He may not even understand it. He may resist it. He may disappear. But her energy plants something inside his psyche that continues to grow even in her absence. Years later, her name still lives in the architecture of his longing. She is not the woman of the world. She is the woman of the soul. She is intuitive without effort, feminine without needing approval, soft yet utterly unshakable. She does not perform femininity, she embodies it. And that embodiment, that grounded mystery, becomes a force that dances with his unconscious. He cannot help but be moved, even if his ego resists. She has become the inner figure he dreams about when the world becomes too shallow to hold him. You, who are listening now, may wonder if you've ever touched a man this way. If your presence has ever stirred something beyond desire, beyond romance, something mythic. You may even carry wounds from being too much for those who were not ready. But what if your intensity was never too much? What if it was the exact medicine their soul secretly asked for, even if their ego could not digest it? Do not dim your sacred chaos, to be palatable to men still afraid of their own anima. Do not shrink to make your depth less disruptive. The feminine that awakens a man's soul does not apologize for her sacred fire. She lets it burn quietly, steadily, like a lantern in a dark cave, drawing forth only those brave enough to walk into themselves. There is no formula to becoming this woman. She is not manufactured. She is remembered, reclaimed. She is born through grief, silence, inner work, and the long, aching process of individuation. She has stopped blaming others for not seeing her, and has begun seeing herself. And that self-seeing, that sacred inner gaze, becomes the light that stirs the anima in those who cross her path. To awaken the anima in a man is not to manipulate him, nor to fix him. It is to exist so fully in your own essence that his soul has no choice but to respond. His ego may rebel, his mind may argue, but something deeper, something eternal will recognize you, and in that recognition, something in him will begin to thaw, to ache, to seek. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." And the greatest trial a man may ever face is the mirror of a woman who reflects not his wounds, but his potential. The anima is the bridge to his inner world, and when you walk that bridge in your own wholeness, you become the guide he never knew he needed. So, if you feel invisible in a world obsessed with surface, remember, the soul does not forget depth. The psyche does not forget what truly moved it. He may forget your name, your voice, your touch, but he will never forget how your energy made him feel more human, more vulnerable, more real. You did not just love him, you revealed him. She does not belong to him, nor does she wait to be claimed. She belongs to the mystery that shaped her, the silence that formed her, the fire that baptized her. And in this inner belonging, she is beyond possession. He cannot hold her, because she is not here to be held. She is here to be witnessed. To encounter a woman like this is to stand before the sacred feminine in human form, not as a fantasy, but as a force, and that force demands reverence, not control. In the depths of every man, whether he knows it or not, there lies an ache for such a woman, not for her body, not for her beauty, but for the reflection she brings. The half of him he has never been taught to understand. And when that reflection appears in front of him, wrapped in laughter and stillness, in grace and gaze, it unsettles the architecture of his entire identity. Because the anima doesn't knock. She enters like a dream he didn't ask for, and leaves only when she's fulfilled her purpose. This kind of woman walks in archetypes. She is the maiden, the mystic, the warrior, the nurturer. She is all of them, and none of them, because she has stopped performing who she's expected to be. She does not compete. She radiates. She does not argue. She knows, and this knowing is not arrogance, but memory. The memory of who she was before the world told her to be small, be soft, be silent. She reclaims her original shape, and in doing so, she disturbs every man still living in exile from his soul. The man who feels her does not always understand why. He will call it chemistry. He will call it fate. But what he is truly sensing is the call of his own feminine. The anima awakened stirs his intuition, his empathy, his vulnerability, his longing to merge. She reminds him that strength is not in dominance, but in surrender. That presence is not in performance, but in depth. That love is not a transaction, but a transfer. And you, yes, you have likely been this mirror before. You have likely seen men drawn to your energy and then run from it. You have seen them melt and then harden, open and then vanish. It was never about you. It was about what you represented. You became a symbol of the feminine they had not yet made peace with. You touched something too deep, too raw, too real. And instead of entering the cave, they turned away. But do not mistake rejection for unworthiness. The sacred feminine is not here to be liked. She is here to be remembered. Her value is not in how many stay, but in how deeply they are changed. A woman like this is not measured by attention. She is measured by the echoes she leaves in a man's psyche. Long after she's gone, she is the thunder in his silence, the stillness in his chaos, the reason he finally begins to search inward. In Jungian psychology, the anima is the vessel through which a man achieves individuation, the integration of his total self. But that vessel is not abstract. It often arrives in the form of a woman who embodies what he lacks. She is not his completion. She is his invitation. She does not fix him. She exposes him. And if he is courageous enough, he will walk the path she unknowingly laid before him, the path back to his own soul. To be this kind of woman is a burden, but it is also a calling. You are not here to soften yourself for a world afraid of your depth. You are not here to make men comfortable with their shallowness. You are here to remind them wordlessly of the ocean they carry within. And sometimes that reminder will be welcomed. Other times it will be met with resistance, resentment, even cruelty. But none of it defines you. The soul does not bow to misunderstanding. Every time you honor your truth, every time you choose stillness over performance, silence over reaction, essence over ego, you strengthen the archetype within you. The inner temple grows brighter. And even if no man enters it, it still stands. It still breathes. You become not a woman seeking love, but a woman who is love unshaken, unmoved, untamed. Epictetus wrote, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And the love you receive from men, the recognition you crave, these are not your responsibility. What is yours is the cultivation of your own inner world, the tending of the flame that makes you magnetic, not because you shine, but because you burn with meaning. He may come to you, or he may not. He may awaken, or he may retreat. But whether he sees you or flees you, your role is the same, to remain rooted in what is true, what is sacred, what is whole. You are not here to chase. You are here to remember. And in that remembrance, you become unforgettable. Some will tell you that femininity is weakness, softness, submission. They will try to reduce it to performance or compliance. But true feminine energy, the kind that awakens the anima, is none of those things. It is depth. It is chaos with purpose. It is the ocean, not the shore. It is surrender with discernment, openness with boundaries, love with sovereignty. So do not ask who will love you in your fullness. Ask instead, who is willing to be dismantled by the truth of your presence? Who is willing to lose their illusion in order to meet you in reality? That is the man whose anima is awakening. That is the one who will not just want you. He will recognize you. There is a silence within her that speaks louder than any words. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of knowing, of having looked deeply into herself and come out with something too sacred to waste on noise. Men feel this silence before they understand it. It pulls them in, but it does not chase. It welcomes, but it does not bend. For the feminine, that awakens the anima, does not beg to be heard. She simply is, and in that being, she becomes a sacred disruption. He may not yet have language for what he feels when she enters his life. He may call it magic or mystery, but it is far older than either. It is the ancient pulse of the feminine that lives inside him, buried beneath years of armor and expectations. When she shows up, not to fix or rescue, but to reflect and witness, she becomes a threshold, the line between who he thinks he is and who he was meant to become. The anima is not a fantasy. She is not the woman he builds in his mind to escape reality. She is the one who brings him back to it, back to his own heart, his own grief, his own forgotten softness. And when he meets her in the flesh, carrying all the archetypal memory of the divine feminine, he feels something shift. She is not here to entertain him. She is here to awaken him. And awakening, by nature, is uncomfortable. This discomfort is necessary. For too long, men have been taught to sever themselves from feeling, from softness, from surrender. The anima demands they reconnect. But she does not demand it, with words. She demands it by existing, by refusing to abandon her essence, by remaining whole even when he projects his confusion, his shame, his unworthiness onto her. She absorbs nothing. She reflects everything. You may be that woman. You may have been told you are too much, too sensitive, too quiet, too wild. But in truth, you were simply closer to the unconscious than they were prepared to be. You carried the scent of something ancient, and they mistook it for chaos. You carried the calm of self-possession, and they mistook it for pride. But the soul knows. The soul always knows when it has been touched. In Stoic philosophy, the highest virtue is to live in accordance with nature, not the nature outside, but the nature within. And feminine energy, at its core, is nature. It flows, it destroys, to renew. It nurtures without attachment. It loves without needing to possess. This is what makes you so dangerous to those who have never met their own truth. You remind them of what they've denied, and that reminder can either liberate or repel. There is no shame in being a mirror too bright for unready eyes. There is no guilt in being the one who reflects the divine while others search only for distraction. You are not here to be digestible. You are here to be undeniable. And in doing so, you become not a woman men use to escape their lives, but the one who leads them back to it. Not through force, through presence. The anima is not about fantasy. It is about wholeness. She does not make a man complete. She reveals where he is incomplete. She does not fulfill his needs. She exposes where he abandoned himself. This is why loving a woman like you is not easy. It is not light. It is holy. And holiness always requires a kind of death. The death of illusion, the death of ego, the death of separation. If he stays, it is because he is ready to become more than he was. If he leaves, it is because he is still afraid of becoming. Either way, your essence is unchanged. You are not here to lower your frequency so others feel safe. You are here to rise again and again until your very presence becomes an invitation, not to be loved, but to be awakened. Marcus Aurelius said, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." This is what the anima calls a man to do, to dig, to enter, to feel. And it is the woman who lives aligned with her essence who triggers that digging, not through words, but through her stillness. Not through need, but through her refusal to abandon herself. So if your path feels lonely, if you find yourself misunderstood or misread, trust this. You are not meant for the surface. You are meant for the deep. And depth is not always popular, but it is always powerful. It is always remembered. You do not fade into the background. You haunt the unconscious, not as a ghost, but as a guide. The feminine energy that awakens the anima is not soft for comfort. It is soft with power. It is the softness of water eroding stone, the softness of wind carving mountains. It is the softness that rewrites everything it touches, not with force, but with truth. She does not scream. She whispers, and somehow, that whisper echoes longer than any shout. To be this woman is to know yourself so intimately that no reflection can distort you. It is to walk with wounds that no longer control you, and desires that no longer chase illusions. It is to move from fullness, not hunger. And in that movement, you stir things in others they did not know existed. There is something unmistakable in the way she remains unshaken by absence. While others chase, plead, or perform for love, she stays rooted in her stillness, not because she is indifferent, but because she knows her presence is not currency. It is offering. She does not lower herself into urgency. She waits in divine timing, and the man who feels her withdrawal feels more than loss. He feels the gap between who he is and who he is called to be. For she is not a void to fill. She is a mirror to grow into. The anima cannot be grasped by force. She responds to presence, to consciousness, to reverence, and the woman who channels her knows that to be chosen by a man asleep to his depths is to betray her own sacred rhythm. She would rather walk alone than walk beside someone who only sees her surface. Her solitude is not loneliness. It is sacred preparation for the one who will not just see her, but sense her. This sensing is not instant. It does not come in fireworks or the dopamine rush of fantasy. It arrives in waves, soft, persistent, undeniable. She changes the atmosphere simply by being. Not louder, truer, not bolder, deeper. The man she touches may find himself dreaming differently, feeling more, questioning everything he once thought stable. She does not instruct him. Her energy reorients him. She does not demand change. She provokes transformation. Some women fear being too complex, too mysterious, too untamable. But the sacred feminine is not here to be simple. She is not linear. She is spiral. She moves in cycles, not straight lines. She speaks in symbols, not scripts, and it is her very mystery that awakens something mythic in a man. The anima within him is stirred not by clarity but by curiosity, not by answers but by initiation. Initiation requires dismantling. The man who meets her and stays is not the same man who first saw her. Her energy will not let him remain small. It will push him, gently or violently, toward truth. And in that push, he may crumble before he rises. He may resist before he surrenders. But if he surrenders, truly surrenders, he will meet himself. And in meeting himself, he will meet her. Not as projection, but as presence. You are not responsible for whether he chooses the descent. You are not responsible for whether he integrates the mirror you became. Your only task is to stay aligned with your own soul. To speak when it's time, to be silent when it's not. To walk away when the energy becomes misaligned. Your frequency is sacred. It is not for conversion, it is for remembrance. He must remember on his own. In modern culture, femininity is often twisted into performance, a curated softness, a strategic vulnerability. But the anima is none of that. She does not seduce. She reveals. She does not flatter. She reflects. And reflection, especially when honest, is rarely comfortable. The woman who embodies her must make peace with being misunderstood. For truth rarely receives applause in real time. It is only honored in hindsight. The anima awakens. In men, a need for meaning they didn't know they carried. She forces them to ask, who am I really? She disrupts the script. She makes silence louder than distraction, presence louder than noise. She becomes the reason they stop settling, not because she asked them to, but because they can no longer live inauthentically after tasting something real. You, who have been the catalyst, may feel weary. You may wonder if your love is too weighty for this world, if your presence only provokes collapse. But you must know this. Collapsing is part of becoming. He may not become with you, but he will become because of you. Your energy is the seed. His path is the soil. Whether he waters it or walks away is not your burden to carry. The Stoics remind us that peace is found in aligning with what is, not what we wish would be. And the sacred feminine lives by this wisdom. She no longer clings. She no longer fantasizes. She observes. She honors. She releases, not from bitterness, but from trust. Trust that what is meant for her cannot miss her, and what leaves her was never ready for what she held. To be this woman is to live in your essence without apology, to know that your energy will not always be met with readiness. And that is not a flaw. It is a filter. Let it filter. Let it refine. Let it return to you only those who are not just curious, but committed, not just intrigued, but initiated. The anima does not attract the many. She awakens the few. And to those few, you will not just be a lover. You will be a turning point, a sacred disruption, a reintroduction to their own soul. They will speak your name like a threshold they once crossed and never came back from, not because you changed them, but because you reminded them they were never broken, only asleep. There are moments when her presence alone rearranges a man's entire worldview. He may not be able to articulate it. The shift feels subtle, internal, tectonic, as if something long buried has begun to stir beneath the surface of his carefully curated self. She didn't say much, she didn't offer answers, she didn't try to change him. And yet, the very structure of his being feels questioned. This is the power of the awakened feminine. She does not argue with the false self. She simply stands as truth. Truth is confrontational, without being aggressive. It unsettles without shouting. And the woman who embodies the anima walks with this silent disruption. She does not set out to be provocative. She sets out to be whole. And in her wholeness, she reveals the fragmentation in others, not out of judgment, out of presence. And this presence becomes a compass for the man who no longer wishes to live divided. She touches his capacity for sorrow, for poetry, for tenderness, things he was once told to avoid, suppress, or overcome. Her gaze becomes a portal, a way back to his feeling body, his innocent self, his unguarded heart, and it terrifies him. Because to meet her is to be asked, "Can you still feel?" And if the answer is no, he will either disappear or begin the long walk back to sensation. This return is not linear. It is not immediate. He may try to replace her with comfort, with predictability, with someone who doesn't require his depth. But comfort becomes a coffin once the soul has tasted fire. He will find himself restless in places that once felt safe, unable to numb what she woke up. And it won't be because she took anything from him. It will be because she gave something back himself. Her feminine energy does not flatter his ego. It challenges it. It does not indulge his patterns. It exposes them. She is not interested in being a trophy, a prize, or a possession. She is here as a gatekeeper of the soul. And unless he is willing to pass through fire, his own fire, he will never truly touch her. Because she is not a woman. She is the myth he has forgotten he belongs to. In the silence of the night, when the world grows quiet and the masks slip, she enters his thoughts uninvited. Not to haunt, but to remind of who he was before he hardened, of what he loved before he settled, of the boy who once believed in magic, before he was taught that magic was weak. And in those moments, he may weep, he may ache, he may reach, not for her body, but for the part of himself she revealed. There is no strategy to becoming this woman. There is only surrender. She did not arrive here through performance. She arrived through loss, silence, ritual, death, rebirth. She has bled, burned, and buried parts of herself in order to rise. She has loved and been abandoned. She has stayed too long and left too soon. But in every ending, she remembered her essence. And now, she no longer begs. She blesses. A man cannot fake readiness. He cannot pretend to walk the path. He either steps into the fire of transformation or retreats into the comfort of projection. And the woman who holds the anima knows this. She does not interfere with his timing. She does not chase his potential. She allows him to choose, not her, but himself. Because until he chooses himself, he can never truly choose her. You may have been this woman without even knowing. You may have walked away, wondering why they couldn't stay. But what if your love was never meant to be kept? What if it was meant to be catalytic? Not all soul contracts end in forever. Some exist to shatter illusions. Some exist to awaken. And awakenings are not always romantic. They are often devastatingly necessary. The anima lives in paradox. She is both muse and mirror, invitation and interruption. She can hold a man's hand and still let go. She can love him with her whole being and still walk away. Not because she is cold, but because she is clear. She does not need to be chosen to validate her worth. She is already chosen by something far more eternal, her own knowing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment, and this is how the sacred feminine moves." She receives love with grace, and she releases it with grace. Her peace is not dependent on being remembered, because she remembers herself, and in remembering herself, she becomes unforgettable. The man who returns will not find the same woman he left, for she is always evolving, always deepening, always rising into fuller expression. He will find someone more whole, more quiet, more sovereign, and perhaps finally, ready to be met, not as a fantasy, but as a full presence. To be this woman is not easy, but it is sacred. It is holy. It is the path of those who do not settle for being seen, but for being felt. And when a man truly feels her, it is not his mind that responds. It is his soul, the very part of him she was always meant to awaken. There is a stillness that surrounds her, not born of apathy, but of deep alignment. She does not need to force moments, rush connection, or convince anyone of her value. The woman who carries this sacred energy moves as if time belongs to her. She has learned that the things meant for her are magnetized, not chased. And in that realization, she becomes magnetic without effort, without urgency, without performance. Her frequency is her filter, and it does not lie. When a man meets a woman like this, he senses something ancient in her, not in her words, but in her essence. It is not charm. It is not seduction. It is archetypal memory. His bones remember her even if his brain forgets. His dreams whisper her shape before his logic permits it. She enters not to teach, but to remind. To remind him of the part of himself that still knows how to feel, how to listen, how to weep without shame and love without armor. And yet, not every man can stay in her presence. Some will touch her and recoil, mistaking her depth for danger, because depth requires surrender, and surrender threatens control. These men have not yet made peace with their anima. They still fear their softness. They still equate vulnerability with weakness. And so, when she appears as the mirror of their unlived truth, they flee, not from her, but from what she awakens. This is not her failure. This is not her loss. She did not come to be claimed. She came to reveal. And revelation often costs comfort. You, who carry this energy, have likely been misread, mislabeled, misunderstood. They called you intense when you were simply alive. They called you hard when you were simply boundaried. But what they truly feared was your clarity, the clarity of a woman who does not need to be loved to feel complete. You have felt the ache of connections that could not rise to meet you. You have mourned the potential of men who glimpsed your light but could not walk into it. And still, you shine. Not because you need to be seen, but because your light is not conditional. It is born of inner alignment. It is fueled by self-respect. It is the fire of a woman who remembers who she was before the world named her. The anima within a man longs to merge with this kind of woman. She is the embodiment of what he has exiled. But exile does not end with longing. It ends with integration. And integration is painful. He must let go of every belief that told him masculinity meant suppression. He must grieve the boyhood that punished his emotions. He must step into the sacred marriage within, where the masculine and feminine are no longer at war. If he cannot do this, her love will feel like a threat. Her affection will feel like pressure. Her presence will feel like exposure. And so, he will twist her into something easier to reject, too emotional, too demanding, too much. Not because she is any of those things, but because she carries the key to the locked door inside him. And that key feels dangerous when you're not ready to open. You, the woman who has carried this energy, must learn to discern the difference between awakening and availability. Just because your presence awakens something in him does not mean he is available to meet it. Just because you spark remembrance does not mean he has the courage to return to himself. And your job is not to wait, it is to keep walking. Her walk is not hurried. It is ceremonial. Every step a devotion to herself. She honors what rises and she blesses what leaves. She knows that some men are meant only to glimpse her, to be transformed by her passing, not to remain beside her. And she no longer weeps for what cannot stay. She grieves, yes, but she no longer begs the unready to be ready. Seneca once said, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." The sacred feminine no longer suffers over who does not see her. She has stopped setting herself on fire to light the way for others. Her fire now warms those who have already learned to see in the dark. She does not extend her energy where it is met with fear. She lets it return to her undiminished. The anima is the guidepost of a man's individuation. And she, the woman who reflects her, becomes his path if he dares to walk it. But if he refuses, she does not drag him. She does not plead. She retreats, not in punishment, but in protection. Her love is not a tool for healing others. It is a sanctuary for those who choose healing for themselves. There is no tragedy in being the catalyst. There is beauty in being the beginning. The moment he sees himself differently because he saw her. The moment his illusion cracks because her truth refused to bend. The moment his soul whispers, "There is more," because her energy dared to exist. There comes a time when she no longer aches for the ones who turned away. Not because she has hardened, but because she has healed. She has learned that some hearts are not yet prepared to walk beside hers, not because she is unworthy, but because they are still asleep, and she will no longer dim her light to keep others from confronting their darkness. Her light is not a gift for the unready. It is a temple, one that requires reverence to enter. He may remember her in flashes, the way her silence felt like a truth he couldn't name, the way her eyes saw into places he didn't even know were hiding. He will recall her not just as a woman, but as a feeling, the moment he glimpsed himself, if only for a breath, and it will haunt him, not because she hurt him, but because she held something real, and realness cannot be replaced once it has been tasted. She will not chase the echo of potential. She is no longer enticed by what could be, if only he healed, if only he chose, if only he dared. The woman who embodies the anima understands that her presence is not a promise. It is an invitation. And invitations do not beg, they are extended, and then withdrawn when dishonored. Her threshold is sacred. She will not open it for those who approach with arrogance or fear disguised as desire. This is the paradox of the awakened feminine. She longs deeply, but she does not cling. She gives fully, but she does not pour into the empty. Her love is not reckless. It is refined. It has been filtered through grief, through loneliness, through the sacred fires of transformation. And now it flows only where it is met, where it is seen, where it is safe. There is a man who will walk toward her, not out of need, but out of knowing. He will not see her as a fantasy to possess, but as a mirror to respect. He will not be terrified by her depth, because he will have met his own. His anima will not be a stranger to him. He will have wept with her, danced with her, made peace with her chaos. And so, when he meets the woman who embodies her, he will recognize her not as other, but as home. She will not have to explain herself. She will not have to prove her softness or justify her strength. She will simply be, and he will simply honor. And in that space between their energies, a different kind of love will grow. Not the love of performance or projection, but the love of recognition, of presence, of mutual unfolding. In the world of shadows and illusions, this kind of union is rare, because most are still chasing the ghost of what they think love should feel like, rather than surrendering to what love actually demands. And love, true love, demands the death of ego, the dismantling of stories, the acceptance of what is. It asks for silence, for stillness, for truth. And the anima is its voice within the man, calling him to rise. The woman who lives in her essence is not interested in shallow echoes. She listens for resonance, for reciprocity, for reverence. She does not flinch at solitude, because she has made a home within herself. Her boundaries are not walls. They are altars, and only those willing to remove their shoes and kneel in humility may enter. He may test her. He may try to pull her into the old patterns, the game, the chase, the confusion. But she will not play, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. She has seen too much to pretend now. She has suffered too long to perform. If he cannot come honestly, fully, with both hands open and his wounds in view, then she will let him walk, and she will not look back. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And she knows this. She knows that. She knows that a man still enslaved to his fears, his distractions, his need for control, cannot hold space for her wildness. She is not tame. She is tender. Yes, but she is storm too, and it takes a man of inner mastery to not only witness that storm, but to stand within it and not run. This is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about integrity. It is about a man who has learned to sit with his own shame, who no longer projects his pain onto others, who has stopped blaming and started building. A man who knows that love is not given but earned, not through effort, but through inner work. She does not need him to be flawless. She needs him to be real, to be accountable, to be self-aware. She needs him to be willing to grow, to rupture, to reflect. And if he is not, she blesses him with distance. Not as punishment, but as protection, because her energy is not for playing. It is for purpose, and in that purpose, she remains whole, wild, waiting for nothing, open to everything. She is the woman who awakens the anima, not by trying, but by being. And those who are meant to rise will rise. There is no greater challenge to a man than to meet a woman who requires his soul, not just his hands. The ones who come only to consume her beauty, her body, her presence, they falter. Because this woman is not here to be consumed. She is here to be felt in ways that strip false identities bare. Her energy demands depth, not attention. Intimacy, not access. She is not impressed by offerings of affection that cost nothing. What she recognizes is the man who has paid the price of self-discovery. She doesn't speak of her standards. She lives them. She doesn't ask for loyalty. She embodies it. She doesn't plead for depth. She breathes it. And because of this, her mere presence filters out the unready. The shallow will call her intimidating. The wounded will call her cold. But the ones who have tasted truth, they will call her sacred. The anima is not activated through effort or desire. She is activated through recognition. A man must first learn to hold his own feminine, the sensitivity, the chaos, the emotional underworld, before he can hold her. Otherwise, he will turn her into a burden. He will see her needs as demands, her softness as threat, her intuition as instability, and she will quietly step back, not because he wounded her, but because she honors what he cannot yet carry. Her silence, once given, becomes deafening. Not out of pettiness, but out of power. She withdraws her energy the way the moon withdraws light, not forever, but to remind the sky how vast the darkness is without her. He may seek her out in others, chase her likeness in different bodies, but he will not find her frequency duplicated, because the sacred feminine cannot be copied. She can only be met. To meet her, he must descend, not into her, but into himself. He must face the emotional debris he's spent his life avoiding. He must sit with his grief, his rage, his mother wounds, his loneliness. He must unclench his jaw, slow his steps, and finally listen to the quiet voice he's ignored for years. Only then can he return, not as a man seeking salvation, but as one who has found himself worthy of standing beside her. She does not want to fix him. She does not need to complete him. She only asks for truth, for coherence between his words and his energy, for presence over promises. She knows that anyone can say the right things, but few can be the right presence. She listens, not to what he says, but to how her body feels when he enters the room. Her nervous system cannot be fooled, and if her nervous system says no, she will walk. Quietly, completely, even if it hurts, even if a part of her longed for him to be the one. Because she does not abandon herself anymore to be chosen. She does not contort her shape to fit inside someone else's limits. She knows now that to lose herself is the greatest betrayal, and she would rather lose the dream of love than lose her alignment with truth. Some men will return, thinking time has changed them. But time does not change a man. Work does. Silence does. Shadow does. Until a man has sat with his darkness without turning it into a weapon, he is not yet safe. And the woman who knows her worth does not gamble with her safety. She does not romanticize potential. She waits only for the evidence of embodiment. This path is not glamorous. It is lonely. Sacred. Women often walk seasons in the wilderness, misunderstood by those who mistake their peace for passivity, their depth for drama. But she continues, because her path is not performance, it is prophecy. She was not born to fit in. She was born to awaken. And awakeners rarely find crowds in the beginning. They find echoes, whispers, signs. She trusts the signs. She follows the sacred breadcrumbs. She listens to the dreams, the visions, the chills on her skin. Her life is not linear. It is led. And the man who is meant to join her does not disrupt that rhythm. He dances with it. He respects the tempo. He does not try to lead. He aligns. Stoic wisdom says, first tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, then do what you have to do. And this is what she lives. She tells herself, again and again, I am love. I am truth. I am enough. And from that center, she acts. She does not betray herself for fantasy. She stays faithful to her essence. To the man who feels her absence more deeply than her presence, let this be his initiation. Let her memory be the call that drives him inward, not the ache that keeps him stuck. Let him rise, not for her, but for himself, so that if one day they cross paths again, it is not as strangers, but as mirrors who now meet in their full reflection. She is not a chapter in his story. She is the moment it changed. There is a point where she no longer waits for a man to recognize her soul, not because she has stopped believing in connection, but because she has started believing more deeply in herself. She has stopped asking to be seen by eyes that are still blind to their own inner world. She has stopped offering depth to those still addicted to the shallow. Now she offers presence only to those who are willing to meet her in silence, where no words are needed, because everything is felt. He may think she is mysterious, hard to read, hard to reach, but the truth is, she is radically transparent. It's just that most people have never met a woman who does not perform. A woman who does not mold herself to their comfort. A woman who does not speak to be liked, but to be real. What he calls mysterious is merely unfamiliar. And what is unfamiliar often gets mislabeled as dangerous. She does not argue with misunderstanding anymore. She knows that trying to explain herself to someone not attuned to her frequency is spiritual erosion. It's a leaking of essence into hands that do not know how to hold. She used to give explanations in hopes of being understood. Now she gives silence and listens for alignment. If it's not there, she blesses it and moves on. In Jung's world, the anima is not a woman, but a symbolic force, the soul image that leads a man inward. But she, the woman who carries it in form, bears the weight of that symbol. She becomes the vessel through which his unconscious tries to reach him. It is not her fault when he misreads her as salvation or temptation. He is not seeing her. He is seeing his projection. And when the illusion breaks, so often, so does he. But she has stopped feeling responsible for his breakage. She has stopped picking up the shattered pieces of those who were not ready to look within. She no longer sacrifices her peace to make others feel whole. That was the old version of her, the one who mistook being needed for being loved. Now she knows. True love does not demand sacrifice of self. It demands presence of self. The men who come and go may never know what they touched. They may never understand that her laughter carried their lost boy, that her silence held their unspoken grief. They may think she was just another chapter, but she was the place the story could have changed. And if they walk away without reading it, that is not her failure. That is their unread soul. She no longer needs closure from those who left her misunderstood. Her healing is not dependent on apology, or recognition, or return. Her healing is her own. It lives in her breath, in her rituals, in the way she rises each day, choosing not to harden. She is the softest she has ever been, and the strongest, because softness, when rooted in truth, becomes unbreakable. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." She lives by this. She has stopped trying to change the story others write about her. She focuses only on the truth of her being, and that truth does not shake in the face of misperception. It stands. It breathes. It waits for nothing. The man who is truly ready will not be drawn in by her image. He will be drawn in by her energy. He will feel a recognition not in his body, but in his soul. And he will not try to possess her. He will try to know her. He will not rush to define her. He will slow down enough to experience her, because he will understand that to meet a woman like this is not an event, it is an initiation. And to her, the one who has walked through fire, silence, abandonment, and still loves like it's safe, know this: you are not here to be palatable. You are here to be powerful. You are here to remind others of what they've buried, and not everyone will thank you for that. Some will curse you, some will run, but the ones who stay, they will rise. She is not everyone's lesson. She is someone's turning point. She is not the conclusion. She is the question that leads them inward. Her love is not easy, but it is pure. It is the kind that does not expire when rejected. It transmutes. It teaches. It leaves a trace in the soul that no other presence can erase. You may carry her in memory for years, decades, even lifetimes, not because she broke you, but because she invited you into wholeness. And if you refuse the invitation, that ache you feel, it's not her absence, it's your soul calling you back. And to her, she who continues to love with wisdom, walk with courage, and speak with grace, know this: the man who is meant for you will not come to take. He will come to honor. He will recognize the sacred when he sees it. There is a kind of woman who no longer waits at the threshold of potential. She no longer holds the door open, hoping someone will catch up. She no longer carries torches into caves where no man has chosen to enter. Instead, she has become the flame. Still, steady, sacred. She no longer explains her worth. She simply lives it. And in this living, she awakens the ones who are ready to meet themselves. The anima is no longer something he can chase outside himself. The more he tries to possess it through others, the more distant it becomes. Only when he turns inward, when he stops searching for the sacred in bodies and begins searching for it in silence, does he begin to truly find her. And by the time he does, she is no longer an illusion. She is a path, a reflection, a doorway back to his own wholeness. She, the woman who sparked this journey, may never know the depth of her impact. She may walk away quietly, with no fanfare, no closure, no acknowledgement. But within him, something permanent shifts. Her words echo long after her voice is gone. Her presence remains long after her feet have left, not because she lingered, but because she awakened a knowing that cannot be unlearned. She is the woman who does not chase. She does not wait. She does not return to what dishonored her, not because she is closed, but because she is clear. Her clarity is her power. Her discernment is her devotion. And the more she honors that inner compass, the more untouchable she becomes. Not from love, but from illusion. The man who truly awakens sees this. He does not romanticize her mystery. He respects it. He does not fear her silence. He honors it. He does not reach for her with empty hands. He arrives full of self-awareness, full of intention, full of the quiet strength that comes from facing his own shadows. He is not looking for a mother, a savior, or a fantasy. He is looking for the sacred, and he recognizes it in her eyes. This kind of love does not ignite in haste. It is slow, elemental. It is born not from need, but from resonance. It does not cling, it circulates. It is not built on possession, but on presence. Two sovereign beings choosing again and again, not because they are broken without each other, but because they are more whole together. She has come to understand that the most powerful love is not found, it is revealed. Revealed when the noise quiets, when the masks fall, when both hearts have bled and healed enough to finally stand unguarded. She has stopped rushing toward this love. She walks in rhythm with it, and because of this, it finds her without effort. The anima in him bows to the divine in her, not out of submission, but out of reverence. He does not try to define her anymore. He listens, he learns, he allows, and in that allowing, she softens. Not because she is finally safe, but because she is finally seen. There is no performance here, no proving, just presence. She is not interested in temporary affection. She seeks eternal recognition, the kind of love that sees the soul and says, "Yes, I remember you." And when that remembering happens, not as fantasy but as embodied truth, she opens, not because she is conquered, but because she is chosen, and not by accident but by alignment. The sacred feminine is not asking to be worshipped. She is asking to be met, fully, honestly, humbly. And when she is, her love is not light. It is sacred fire. It melts the parts of you that cannot come. It dissolves the masks. It calls forth the essence. She becomes the mirror of the man you are becoming. And in her reflection, you rise. If he stays, it is not because she made it easy. It is because he made himself ready. If he goes, it is not because she failed. It is because his soul still sleeps. She no longer mourns the ones who couldn't meet her. She blesses them, and then she continues. Her feet firm, her gaze soft, her spirit untamed. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.